Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. A few weeks ago I did a video on the state of the Burning Crusade servers, covering how players are en masse choosing to move to servers which are seeing up to, or in some cases over 20,000 combined Warcraft log and arena entries per week. Either that or seeking out places where they become the faction majority. This over time has led to many once thriving smaller communities from Classic to dry up at a rather alarming pace, as players choose to filter themselves into a handful of servers, creating mega servers. I went over the problems this causes in that video, so I don't want to repeat all of it again, but suffice to say it leaves players on dead-end servers with a choice of get the wallet out to transfer, quit, or re-roll. Not a good feeling. And in that video I struggled to actually propose a solution which does anything useful whatsoever at this point in time, with how our servers have existed for over 2 years now. In fact, many of the things suggested would have only worked in hindsight, or would be at the detriment of players who are on the larger servers. Both of these seem like complete non-starter ideas to me. And the same day I put that video out, a post was put forward from the Classic Community Council. Remember that? In fact, they've done a few posts and they tend to get Bluepost replies as well, so fair play to them. I know the Community Council has been done before in the past and it didn't go too well, so hopefully this one sticks, at least for Classic. If you like the videos, you can drop a sub on the channel and a like on it as well. That would help me out a lot. Anyways, we have got a very long blue post on the subject of servers, their views on it, things that they have considered, and replying to proposed solutions which the player base have mentioned more than once. I'm going to skip over most of it because I just don't want to read the whole thing, as there were plenty of points which I made in the previous video not so long ago, which I'll also link if you haven't seen it. But they do really itemize quite a few points and concerns, and it's interesting to hear from the side of Blizzard in an actual blue post. We have years of data that suggests that on a long enough timeline the population for most PvP servers will tend to skew towards one faction or the other, and this skew often starts as the result of more incoming players joining the majority faction rather than players leaving the minority. This was part of a reply to the idea that if we have two servers, one that's 90-10 Horde and the other that's 90-10 Alliance, why not just merge them together? They also go on to say, what happens in several months when the population of this new, more balanced realm starts to again, and likely inevitably, skew towards one faction or the other? It will fix it in the short term, absolutely, but the data and servers over a long period of time have shown that players will seek out an advantage in any way possible, and they're not interested in balance. Blizzard go on to say, and this is quite a big one actually, overall the data we have suggests that broadly, players don't want an even playing field and or they care more about having their faction being heavily populated and lively than they care about their realm being balanced. So for Blizzard to intervene on player habits by forming mega servers is both fighting against human nature and essentially saying you aren't playing the game in the way which we intended you to. To try and break up mega servers and the communities that have been built into them is kind of the same concern as connecting smaller realms and forcing new players into them and potentially having layering issues. The post finishes inviting some player input and solutions, saying we generally prefer to avoid any solution that would force players to do anything they don't want to do or directly damages or diminishes their ability to log in and play the game, which is understandable but certainly complicates things, well, a lot. They also say on this post we're working on plans to host some form of live chat with you soon to discuss this and other aspects of WoW Classic. Looking forward to that, hopefully something comes of it. Next post, Community Council members Six Fury and Basil, or if you're American, Basil, forward some ideas, ones which we've heard a bunch, but now we have some blue post replies on it as well. First up, actually having incentives to play on a low population server, i.e. if you play on X server you get Y bonus. What would Y bonus be? Faster leveling? Free mount, cheaper training for ranks of spells? It would have to be something, for me at least, that only ever mattered on that specific server. A bonus that cannot really leave that server. I think that is really important. If you gave people a way to make extra gold on certain servers, it would become absolutely swamped with bots that would profit from it and then transfer to a mega realm to sell what they've earned. And as mentioned in the blue post, they did this for Battlegrounds in the Burning Crusade for Alliance to try and encourage participation, offering an enlistment bonus with consumables, badges, materials and so on, which helped just a little bit because the bonus was little and the people who queued BGs were really doing it for honor and badges, not random materials which added up to a little bit extra gold. So if they did do something for smaller servers, it would have to be something pretty substantial and unique, because the opportunity cost of not being on a big server is huge. We're talking very big bonuses that mega servers cannot have, like dual spec levels are big in terms of a change. Next idea, faction caps, and I'm going to throw in faction queues here as well because I know private servers have done them in the past and they've worked for that, but it's far too late to consider either of these for TBC. Bluepost at Agren says that they have explored it internally, mentioning, "We did actually invest in developing tech to allow us to queue each faction independently and considered rolling this out in Season of Mastery. The idea here would have been to basically enforce some sort of specific faction balance, say 60-40, and then force queues on the majority faction until the minority faction began to log in to compensate." Notice he says for Season of Mastery. That's the thing about faction caps and queues. It has to be in from day one. You can't just try and turn it on upon servers which are already wildly out of balance for reasons given, such as what if we get into a situation where, say, every single PvP server is skewed towards Horde? This already happens. Most PvP servers are Horde based. Most PvE servers are Alliance majority. What happens if the population of a certain server or servers are such that there are never enough of the minority faction logging that the majority queue never goes down, or worse, the wait time actually continues to climb because the rate at which the minority faction logging in never matches or exceeds the rate that the majority faction is logging out. Example for TBC. Here is Benediction on Ironforge.pro as of today. Now, the thing about a 60-40 split, but this would be true for any percentage split, is that it is a changing number. If, say, 800 Horde are currently logged in during a Saturday, the maximum number of Alliance that can be online at one time has to be 60% of that amount, so it's 1200, meaning that over 90% of the Alliance player base are going to be sitting looking at a queue screen, a queue that will quite literally never go away because the minority faction is just too few on that server. That is not a very good idea. Again, it does have potential for new servers if they wanted to try it, but players have shown time and again it's a smaller concern than actually just playing on a big server with lots of people. Maybe more changes are needed to make being in the open world more appealing and to give better benefits to open world PvP, such as adding new resources to farm, honor system changes, better rewards from world boss or dynamic world bosses, changes to death mechanics, and so on. Next up, free transfers from majority to minority. We've seen how this one goes in the past, the Bluepost says. Again, using the data we've gathered over the past few years, it's fairly conclusive that players do not take advantage of FCMs, free character migrations, or paid transfers to move to the Underdog faction. Underdog is Underdog for a reason. People will not do this. There's even cross-realm play suggested, which seems like if it ever happens, it's a long way off to me. One of the ideas among many that Classic was built on, some of which still exist, was that we aren't going to be doing this. If cross-realm does happen, it will be through necessity on a later WoW seasonal server if populations dip enough. Wrath of the Lich King and cross-realm looking for dungeon will be a thing before this goes anywhere, I'd be willing to bet, at which point players may be more open to it, and then it will go back and find its way into older versions of the game. And finally, surprisingly, news on Classic potentially moving to include more polling content. This is a reply to the idea of seeing some kind of multi-choice or poll on the WoW launcher. The Bluepost reply says, so this is actually something that the team has talked about a lot, and we have some plans to investigate a way to poll the community about certain topics, and to do so in-game. The current, very half-baked ideas are something like an NPC somewhere in the world that asks questions about hot button issues with players that they can answer via a flavor text window, maybe one per account, with some restrictions and requirements so it's not abused. I know what you're thinking, and it's not quite old school RuneScape, is it? But I didn't expect to hear this. These polls may not carry the weight of decisions that they do in RuneScape, in that they must reach a certain percentage in order to go live in the game, but it would be a big, frankly overdue step towards some improved communication with the players on issues and solutions to commonly found problems that are being explored. I personally feel polls are a great way to engage a large number of people and get a feel for the room, and in my experience people love a poll, so it'd be great to see in game. I can see it now, the Stormwind and Orgrimmar polling stations. You could definitely fit them in for lore reasons at least. You know that big empty room opposite where they put the Stormwind auction house in Cataclysm? You could put it there, and for Orgrimmar, I'm sure they'll think of somewhere. So a lot overall was said there, but not too many real solutions in sight. It's almost like the way servers were done in 2004 did not have the benefit of hindsight of how they would end up, like we do now. But here we are. But it is some good insight into what they've been doing and testing, such as potential faction queues for Season of Mastery, and maybe we will be getting a polling system after all. Could be things to look out for in future seasons perhaps, if they want to make things a little more different. In any event, let me know your thoughts on it all. As always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I shall see you all in the next one very soon.